The night was as quiet as a crypt when the call came in. The frigid voice on the other end belonged to a village leader, a man torn between fear and responsibility. His words echoed in the silence, painting a vivid picture of the chaos unleashed by the Wendigo. His village, once peaceful and serene, now held hostage by a monster of myth and legend. His voice trembled as he detailed the carnage, the sheer terror that had gripped his people. The Wendigo, a creature I was all too familiar with, had sunk its claws deep into their lives, turning their tranquility into a living nightmare. My mind flickered back to a time not so long ago, a time when I had faced a Wendigo and barely lived to tell the tale. Its monstrous form, the bone-chilling shriek, the icy grip of fear, they were memories I had hoped to bury deep within the recesses of my mind. But here they were, resurfacing like specters from the past. I hesitated, my heart pounding against my ribcage. My instincts, honed from years of hunting cryptids, screamed against the idea. Yet there was another voice, a softer one, that whispered of duty and responsibility. I was a cryptid hunter, after all. This was my calling, my purpose. If not me, then who? The village leader's desperate plea echoed in my ears. "We need you," he implored. "You're our only hope." His words, laden with despair and fear, struck a chord deep within me. I could not turn a blind eye. I could not ignore the call to arms. So I made my decision. I pushed aside the fear, the memories of the past, and the looming dread of what lay ahead. I was a cryptid hunter, a protector of the innocent, a shield against the darkness. This was what I was born to do, what I was meant for. So with a heavy heart, I set out for the village, not knowing what awaited me. The village was a scene straight out of a horror tale. A palpable haze of dread hung in the air as the villagers huddled in their homes, their faces etched with fear. As I stepped into this chaos, I knew my work was cut out for me. I began my investigation, talking to the villagers one by one. Their stories echoed the same haunting pattern. A creature of incredible strength and terrifying cunning, a Wendigo. Their tales wove a chilling tapestry of terror. A shadow that moved with the wind, eyes glowing with an unnatural hunger, and a howl that froze the blood in your veins. Homes were breached, livestock vanished, and the once vibrant woods now stood silent and desolate. Every word added to the monstrous image of the Wendigo, creating a puzzle that I was determined to solve. The more I heard, the more I realized this was no ordinary Wendigo. With every step into the dense forest, the air grew colder, the silence deeper. As the cryptid hunter, my senses heightened. I could feel the chill of the forest seeping into my bones, the quiet amplifying the soft crunch of leaves beneath my boots. I was on the hunt, deep in the heart of the wilderness, tracking the elusive Wendigo. This creature, once a man, now a monster, had been causing chaos and terror in a nearby village. The signs of its presence were unmistakable. The forest was littered with remnants of its savage hunts, the mutilated wildlife, their bodies torn apart with a ferocity that no ordinary predator could muster. But there was something more, an eerie sensation, a supernatural undercurrent that prickled at the back of my neck. Trees stripped of their bark, standing stark and bare amidst their lush counterparts. A sudden drop in temperature that made my breath fog up in the air. A strange echoing howl that sent a shiver down my spine. And yet the more I followed the trail of the Wendigo, the more I began to notice a pattern. It wasn't random or chaotic. The mutilations, the stripped trees, the chilling temperature drops, they were all leading me on a path like breadcrumbs in a dark, twisted fairy tale. The Wendigo was not just hunting, it was communicating, sending a message. Every sign, every terror it had inflicted was part of a larger, more sinister design. The realization sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was not just the hunter, but also the hunted. The forest seemed to close in around me, the shadows lengthening, the silence pressing in. My heart pounded in my chest, my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. The Wendigo was not just a mindless beast, it was intelligent, cunning, and it was leading me somewhere. That's when it hit me. The Wendigo wasn't just hunting, it was leading me somewhere. In the heart of the forest, I found it, the Wendigo's lair and its dark secret. The lair was a chilling sight, a grotesque sanctuary tucked away in the deep, silent woods. An eerie aura of dread hung heavy in the air, but it was here I uncovered the truth. There, amid the gloom, lay a relic of a human past, a tarnished locket with the faded image of a villager who had vanished without a trace. As I held the locket, a realization washed over me. The Wendigo, this beast of legend, this terror of the night, had once been human. A villager, just like those it now hunted. It was not born of chaos and darkness, but of a curse that had warped an ordinary person into a monstrous entity, bound to the forest and to an insatiable hunger. This revelation cast a new light on the Wendigo's actions. The terror it inflicted, the fear it inspired, they weren't random acts of a mindless beast. No, they were desperate cries for help, garbled and distorted by its monstrous form. The Wendigo was not the villain of this story, but a victim of a cruel fate it never asked for. I thought back to the attacks, the patterns I'd originally chalked up to the creature's predatory instincts. The Wendigo had been trying to communicate, to tell its story in the only way it knew how. Each attack, each scare was a plea for understanding, a plea for help. The monster I'd been hunting was, in truth, a prisoner of a curse it could not escape. This was the Wendigo's dark secret, a secret that shattered my perception, that turned the hunter into the empathizer. I was no longer hunting a monster. I was hunting a lost soul, desperate to be free. The terror it had caused, the lives it had taken, they were not acts of evil, but of desperation. I stood there staring at the cursed creature, the hunter, now the hunted now the empathizer, the terror, now the pitied, and in that moment I knew my hunt had taken on a new purpose. I had a choice to make. It was a choice that would not only seal the fate of the Wendigo, but mine as well. A choice that was a battle between fear and compassion, between the hunter and the human in me. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. The Wendigo, a creature of nightmares, stood at my mercy. I could end its reign of terror with a swift strike, or I could attempt the unthinkable, lift the curse that had turned man into monster. I took a deep breath, calling upon the wisdom of a shaman from my past. The air filled with the murmurs of an ancient ritual, a desperate plea for redemption. And then, as though answering my call, the Wendigo shuddered, its monstrous form shrinking, contorting until a human stood before me. As the dawn broke, the village was quiet once again, but the victory was bittersweet, a reminder of the fine line that separates man from monster.